get started, we got a lot of stuff to do tonight.
Yep.
So, item 2 is discussion of first possible actions, and 2A is procurement of solid waste services.
Mayor and Council, back before you again, back July 7th, I had met with you outlining the fact that our trash service would be ending in last day of the year 2015, and we would need to have in place a new service for 2016. We discussed at that time the fact that it does take quite a while to do that, and also that we're in the process of trying to consolidate over the past as far as I know, the past 7 or 8 years. That's one of the major things that I've been taking care of or trying to oversee, is consolidating our service to a single service, single provider for bidding out when this contract ran out. I want to start with, and I have up on the screen, the price to beat ordinance, which is unique in Missouri City. As you may recall, back in 2010, July 14, 2010, we had a proposal on the ballot that called for, if you had a solid waste collection service that provided, prior to July 14, 2010, an extension of that, that stayed below the price to beat for the type of service that service level is comparable to what you have, then you can stay with that service provider and that service. That we discussed back in July that we wanted to continue to maintain that, and so we've been working toward that end. I want to review real quickly with you as it relates to the price to beat. We have what we call city program and non-city program services. The non-city program services are those who do have a lower price than the price to beat for the comparable service. That constitutes, at this time, 27.6%. And the rest of the households were either not on a price to beat contract and came under the city's contract at that time, or they have since that time, their price has risen above the price to beat, and they've had to come over to the city service at 72.4%. And so right now, on the non-city service providers, we have interestingly enough, that the only type of service that's being provided is manual service, and that's 17% are getting that type of service, manual service, without recycling, and then 10.6% of the 27% are receiving recycling service along with the manual pickup. For a total, and total households, just for your information, 22,330 constitute what we have throughout the city. Those who are on city service are on able to elect on one of these services, the 6 current programs that we have available. They do this annually through their HOA or their MUD, depending on what group they fall under. And we, at the time, allowed for that to be something they could choose to change annually. And at that time, we had manual service with recycling, automated with recycling with once a month bulk pickup. You can see the various choices. That is very inefficient, and that's something that we recognized early on, that in order to gain efficiency, you have to have uniformity, and to get the price down, to get good service, good consistent service, we're working toward trying to get something that is uniform. So we looked at being able to transition from where we're at today to where we want to be with the new citywide program, and those are outlined here. 6 current proposals only provide for twice a week, either manual or automated collection, and right now only 18% select automated service on the city program, and we also have the opportunity that people can choose subscription weekly recycling, bulk subscription monthly, yard trimmings, there is no such service, and yard trimmings being that that is picked up at a special time and put out exclusively as yard trimmings. And then the other is household hazardous waste, or HHW, and e-waste. This is something that's come into the industry as of recent that allows for curbside or actually subscription type service where you can call and In most cases, you structure it so that it's part of your rate, but you can call and have typically like a bag sent to you, and the service will, you put your electronic waste or household hazardous waste in that bag, put it out, and the company will come back at a particular time and let you know when that is, pick it up and dispose of it for you. Right now, the only option we have as a community is we have events from time to time. If we went this route, then we could have this as an ongoing service that people could utilize throughout the year rather than having to wait and stock up to bring to our events. On the new program, what we want to recommend is that we go to a fully automated system across the board, twice a week, either twice a week or preferably, ideally, if we could get to once a week, do that with recycling on a weekly basis to all residents, expand the service on bulk waste on a monthly basis to all residents, yard trimming, do it on a weekly basis to all residents, and household hazardous waste and e-waste, again, would be on an on-call collection basis.
Hey, Bill, let me stop you there a minute. And I know that some cities have gone to once a week. I could probably do it myself. And I know that there's two different size containers. We
Yes,
had
sir.
the discussion once before about the ability for people to get that container through their gate.
Correct.
Will both of these, I know that one will that fit a normal gate?
Yes, sir. Each of these containers came through that door, and
Okay.
one came through that door, one came through
Okay,
that single
because
door.
I know that was a concern once
Sure.
before when we were requiring people to keep them out of sight, is that some of the containers that they were dealing with that time, they could not get through their gate, so they were having to leave them out, so.
And I measured them, and actually, the 95-gallon was 27 inches wide, 65 gallons, 24. Our gates are 36, so you've got room.
All right, and one other thing, if you went to that, well, I was gonna say, if you went to once a week at some point in time, I assume you could use either container for that as well.
Typically, what you see is you have one that's, and that can vary, and we can prescribe a green one for recycling and a blue one for trash, so you.
No, I'm just saying that in a small household, once a week may not even fill that.
Correct.
And especially if you go to recycling, and they recycle their newspapers, there's nothing left to put in those things.
You won't see this one then.
You won't see that one.
Right.
Okay.
And one thing we did talk about also is that, and we have talked to, we're using a consultant in this process, and they have seen this, and we talked with our Budget and Finance Committee, which was Councilman Emery, Councilman Smith, and Councilman Wyatt, about the idea of having an option at the beginning of the service delivery of either a 65 or a 95 that you could choose.
All right, and let me ask you one other question. I know that in past times, people complained that when it wasn't automated, the garbage guys throw their cans out in the street, throw them up in the yard. With the automated service, that sucker is picked up and set down at the same place the person put it,
Correct.
which makes a lot of sense, because you don't have that issue that we had before of trash cans blowing all over the street, and somebody saying that I put it by my curb, but I found it by the next door neighbor. So the automated system picks it up, dumps it, and puts it back in the same spot.
That's correct. And I will say that that is
At the curb.
probably the #1 complaint that we get
I
from
know,
our residents.
and that's why I wanted some clarification
Right.
for people to hear.
Yes, sir. Moving on, here outlines what types of products are picked up through the different types of streams. Again, solid waste would be your food waste, non-recyclables. Recycling is, there's a wide option or availability to put as much as possible in this day and age. In the past, glass was not so readily available as far as recycling goes, it is now. Bulk waste would include your furniture, mattresses, white goods, large brush products that you see. Yard trimmings, again, leaves, plants, shrubs. And then the HHW would be paint, batteries, cooking oil, and electronics. That, again, that would be on an on-call basis. And this, in fact, let me go to the next slide. here, and this really helped the committee when
Yeah.
we were talking, this is what the services look like when you're utilizing them. In the top left, you see manual versus automated with respect to solid waste. The bulk waste, again, it would look pretty similar to what you have today. There'd be prescribed amounts of which you could put out per month, and then the recycling, again, nice and tidy with a container such as this, excuse me. And then yard trimmings, you could either have it prescribed as a bag that the citizen provides, or there potentially could be recyclable material that is provided and prescribed for use of that. And HHW, again, it'd be on call basis, put it in the bag, put it on your front porch, and they come and pick it up.
So yard trimming could go in the automated bins.
I guess you could. I haven't discussed that with anybody.
Well, I mean, I guess
Because you do see with can service.
if you went to
or type of
automated, how are they gonna pick the others up if it's not in that?
The yard service, you mean?
Yeah.
They'll pick it up
Separately.
separately, yeah. These are on separate
There'll be
days.
a different truck that would have to go along and pick it up.
But
Right.
same day?
That would
Well, we
be
have
a
prescribed
part of the
days.
condition.
Huh?
That would be one of the conditions of the contract. I don't know, I can't tell you if it's gonna be the same day or if it'll be a different day that week, as far as pickup of
But
that.
there would be prescribed days where you'd put recycling out with your waste. You would put bulk out once a month on a particular pickup day, and which would be prescribed by the contract.
You're talking about yard waste once a week?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The same day?
Huh?
Yeah, not everybody does their yard the same day.
No, well, not everybody does do their yard the same day, that's
Yeah.
my point.
Yeah.
You know, so you could have, you know, people who do it on a Monday, and if you pick up on a, you know,
You're
on a
putting it
Monday, they're
aside.
gonna have it wait the whole week till, you know, it rolls around, so.
And that's my question. Is
That's
there any
unusual.
reason you can't put it in that dumpster? in that
Well, yeah, I mean,
container?
you can put anything in the dumpster.
That's what I mean.
It's
Yeah,
one where
but it
nobody's
just won't
seeing what's
be-
going in. If you want to though be, you know, for example, you know, if you do take care of your leaves. So I'll use my own story. I do leaves on a Saturday, I'm gonna put it out at the trash on a Wednesday. I just have to find a place to put the bags so they're out of sight. And it's one where if you had this service, they'd come along on whatever day, maybe the same day, maybe a different day that week. They'd pick them up, they would then take them to be mulched at a different place.
Is the recycling bin the same size as the
No, sir.
normal bin?
No.
I mean, you're showing it here as one.
You could, but these are 65 and
Right.
95. And you could prescribe either, typically what you see is the smaller for the recycling. Unless you went to it once a week, you potentially would see the larger for the recycling and larger for
Aren't leaves
trash.
recyclable?
So,
There's one
But it's,
other,
yeah, you understand though, it's not the same truck that's picking it up though.
Correct.
Yeah, the recycling truck is gonna be your metals, your papers and stuff. Yeah, your leaves are gonna be composted, so it's a different truck altogether.
there's one other photo I would love to see.
what's that?
On page 4 that you have up there, where it says automated under solid waste, the picture on the right, the photo on the right.
Yeah.
And where it says bulk waste, the photo on the right. Those two in the same photo as a service.
Right, and that,
Yeah, that would
they
be.
would be, because
Yeah.
you would pick up on a prescribed day, one of your prescribed solid waste days. would
No, why
potentially-
can't you do it all in one day, on everything in the same day? That's what I'm looking at.
Oh, okay.
So you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. If you could do recycling, bulk, and that on the same day.
Yeah.
It would just be that you'd have all those different trucks coming through.
Yeah, you'd have two different trucks, because the solid waste.
Three trucks.
Yeah.
What's the problem with that? Rather than having a truck coming on a Saturday and manpower on a Saturday, and a truck coming for solid waste,
We can look into
you're
that.
having 3 different days. I think the math kind of, says that it makes sense to have everything on the same day. Especially if there's some
You do bulk
subdivisions,
waste on Monday,
especially if
and-
there's some subdivisions who have that.
And I guess not right to some degree, because we don't see everybody having bulk waste every week. I hope we don't. So if you did the solid waste and the automated twice a week, and then you did a run through the subdivision on Saturday for any bulk, that's gonna be a quick trip for a truck. They're just gonna drive down the street, boom, if it's there, fine, if it's not, they're
They
gonna
gotta
keep
get, I
rolling.
think, a little, this can be worked out after, the big thing here is determining what is the service. And
Types
so
of services.
how the
I know, I
service is then
understand that,
operated.
But that's getting back to what Don.
Yeah, understanding, you're talking people who don't run trash businesses. We contract that out, and so y'all are asking, will this make sense or not? We don't, we don't drive trucks, we don't, so
Right.
Yeah.
you're asking operational questions that are better for decided by who it is that you decide is gonna be your ultimate
When,
provider.
but we are talking
which
about
is
putting an
intelligent.
RFQ out of some
Correct.
sort, right?
Right.
Okay. Again, it would be descriptive if there was another service would will accommodate a significant amount of the end product. If you had 2 days a week, everything picked up.
No, you already went back to it.
And I will, I've noted that to see if, how possible that is, and prescribing that in our RFP.
So you're saying you want the bulk to run the same day that a normal garbage
It
truck
works
would?
mathematically,
Yeah.
to me, is to benefit to everyone, unless I'm missing something.
And I'll definitely talk to them and see.
Yeah, and that's something to,
Talk to
that's
the
something to
garbage
negotiate with the
guys.
provider.
Yeah.
on Provider selection.
Talk to the garbage guys.
Exactly.
Okay.
Then, so what we would want to do, and we've kind of hit this, is that when we put the RFP out, now, staff is recommending that we put one RFP out for the city service that would be automated only with recycling, HHW, bulk, and yard waste.
I agree.
What we've talked about in the committee was the fact that we do have current manual services that we will have to have bid in order to establish a price to beat for those that currently have manual service and not on the city's contract. So we will have to ask for that for the purpose of, and we would like to say the purpose only of, setting the price to beat. And then when they bid manual, no recycling, manual with recycling, that would be for the purpose of seeing if a subdivision that is currently getting one of those two services beats that price or not. If they don't beat that price, then they have to come on the city's contract. Or if they beat that price, they have the choice of coming on the city's service contract or staying where they're at.
Was staff recommendation made based on the conversations that were had with the committee?
Yes, sir. And the one thing that the committee had talked about was being able to have all those services bid for the purpose of seeing if that would fit, having only one service chosen. However, you would bid manual with recycling, manual without recycling, automated with recycling, and so forth. And that's what we had talked about, and we were asking for simplicity to be able to boil it down to.
When did we come to the conclusion that recycling should be included in every one of the scenarios?
We as staff feel like
It wasn't discussed in the
Well,
meeting.
but it's not included in each of the scenarios. The first scenario is just pure bulk pickup. You have to have the recycling as part of your price to beat structure in order to have, just like Bill described, you've got one that's just bulk pickup, one's bulk with recycling in order to have that as a comparison piece to the price to beat standard. And then there's the third option, of which is your, really what Bill's then spelling out.
From, Ed, in all due respect, from what, the little research that I've done, and want to continue it, is that the feedback that I've gotten is that regular pickup, automated, with also heavy pickup, and the option to not at all have recycling involved in the pricing structure at all. Now, if someone wants to have recycling, and it's, I'm certainly for recycling, but if you don't want to have it, then that's a premium. You add it on to it. But there should be a basic contract that says, this is what we're going to do. We're going to pick, we automated, pick it up twice a week, including whatever other stuff, heavy equipment, all in 2 weeks, in those 2 days per week. I haven't gotten any type of strong, positive reaction to recycling, for whatever that means. I haven't at this point. So I'm saying that there ought to be somewhere in this RFP that the bid should be for just a plain vanilla type pickup, automation and heavy equipment all in for two times a week. If you want to do recycling, that's a premium. You can add it on. You pay a premium price.
I think in the past, recycling has not been talked about as much because it was a premium.
Yes.
I mean, it is a premium. People were told that if, especially us who live in Quail Valley, that if you want recycling, you're gonna pay for it. And so more than what you're paying today. So they did a survey to determine whether it was wanted or not. Well, I can tell you in Floyd County, that survey didn't show a whole lot of people interested in it if they had to pay extra. Now, if they didn't have to pay any extra, it probably would be different. And I think if you talk to Sugar Land today, who had what we're talking about originally, but went to offering it across the board, it got utilized much more than what they thought it was gonna be
Correct.
utilized.
And that's seen
Because it
nationwide.
didn't cost them any more.
Right.
Then you had the option of using it or not using it, but it didn't cost you any more than what you were paying. So I guess that's what you're getting at, that if it doesn't cost any more, it's no big deal.
So it's just an add-on and won't cost anything. That's the way you're gonna serve this up with the RFP.
It would be, that's what we were recommending. However, I'm here before you saying, here's what we recommend. Obviously, it's your choice to determine how we put this out then.
The industry standard is, and this is, we've seen this in our other communities where we've implemented recycling, is about 60 to 70% participate if you're talking about recycling bins similar in the stature of these. If you're talking about just the buckets, you usually have about 30% participation. And so it's one to where also because of the recyclable market, the solid waste companies are able to take those recyclables and be able to turn that around and be able to make a revenue out of that. So there's some stuff that's not going to be revenue generated, but there's enough right now with plastics and steel that they're able to, as far as, and plus they've changed the way that they've done recycling, so they're making some money out of that. Now, can I tell you there is no cost that's involved in recycling at all? No, not until you take it out to bid will you see what that actually comes back at.
Bill,
Yeah, go ahead.
I got a few questions. So what happens to the neighborhoods that currently have recycling, they chose to, that are in existence today,
If they are,
according to the new program?
right, if they're a non-city program and they're, the new service that is comparable to theirs is higher than theirs, then they stay on their existing service that they choose. If it's lower, then they have to go over to the city service.
What about if they're in the city program?
Right now, once a year, they can change services. We recommend you not do that because the companies have to gear up with equipment and manpower. They have to change the way in which they provide the service when the type of service changes. And so it's costly, and we will get much better rating. Right now, that's one of the reasons that we have very high solid waste rates throughout the city and widely varying rates throughout the city.
So you're saying that the ones today that chose to have recycling, so they'll have that option?
Well, it depends on what y'all do. If y'all decide to do a unified system through the city, which is our recommendation in order to be able to bring down your rates and also provide a more effective service.
Right.
If you decide to go with the unified service that doesn't have recycling, then you do away with recycling through the whole city. If you decide, yes, let's put the recycling, have a unified system and include recycling, then you reduce recycling throughout the whole city.
So when you put this new program out there, don't you think that should be the first decision that we as council needs to give you directions as to whether we want that RFP to have recycling or not have?
And that's what we're discussing, that's what I want to discuss tonight and get from you tonight.
Yeah, because like Ed says, it's either or not. Either you go across the city with recycling, or you don't go across the city with recycling. We're not gonna get back to where we got 14 different contracts again.
Right.
Lord, I just hope we get at some point in time,
Yeah.
In 28 years that I've dealt with garbage, I pray to God one of these days we get to a point where we are all on one contract.
Right.
The entire city is on one contract.
If you want better service, you
Period.
gotta go that route.
So with that being
know?
said, Mayor, with that being said, how do we circle back to the folks that today have recycling, that they chose to, their community chose to have recycling? So how do we go back to them and saying that this is what we decided?
For those on city service, they would say, this is the service, the option that you have, that the city bid out, and this is what the city received, and this is who the best bid came back from, and this is what council chose.
But then it's either a
And
choice
like
of
it-
including recycling or not including
In
recycling.
talking to our professionals, they only know of 1 or 2 cities in the country that allow for a smorgasbord of choice. You typically see a service in a city. And there are some circumstances similar to what we're talking about. You could potentially, like we were talking about, choose to have a 65 or 95. You'd have to do that up front. It couldn't be something that you're changing every year, because then that gets costly in trying to purchase or take care of equipment you've
Right.
already bought, buying new equipment and so forth.
Well,
no,
if you had, Robin, to answer your question, if you had recycling across the city, you
Right.
can either use it or not use it. But if you don't have recycling across the city and you want to use it, you won't get to use it.
But then I'm missing something because
That's fine, man.
No, I mean, that's what we're talking about. Yeah, a unified contract either says we're gonna have recycling throughout the city or we're not.
Right.
We're not gonna say that Lake Colony can and First Colony can't and all this stuff. If you have a
Today.
unified contract that has recycling in it, you have the choice as a resident of using it or not. But if we have a unified contract that says we don't have recycling, then nobody in the city is gonna get recycling.
right.
So to answer your question,
Yeah.
if a guy's got recycling today, you can bet he wants to keep it.
Well, what if you have, well, that's you gotta have some options here. If you got Mayor, if you got a contract that says you don't have recycling in Plan A, but there's an addendum to this, if subdivision A wants recycling, then you can get it. But
That's
it'll
what
be a-
we're trying to
but
get
it'll
away
be a
from, Don.
surcharge.
There's all these different contracts with all these different
But
subdivisions.
why would you, well, it's not, it's.
Because they're not paying for it.
Well, why would you put first of all, I like to understand from categorically if recycling, is there a cost for recycling? Because
sir.
I'm not convinced that, then why would you put a cost on a significant amount of the end product that they don't want or don't care about?
But you cannot say that the significant amount of population don't want it. We don't know that today. Because there are several people who have it.
But what you're doing is you're assuming the other way.
But
Then
you're
what
also
we need
doing
to
it,
do-
but you're also doing it with the twice-a-week pickup. Some people may only use pickup once a week, but they're still paying for a twice-a-week pickup.
Right.
The option is theirs to take part or not, but they're paying that price.
It's hard to support putting an extra charge on a service. And like I said, it's not scientific at this point, but we're reaching out to find out. But the feedback that I'm getting now is that recycling is not a priority.
From who? Did you talk to the people that currently have it today, and then they say recycling is not a priority? Or
Well, I
to the
can
people
tell you
that don't
what,
have it today?
The-
I'm sure the people that don't have it today would say that's probably not a priority.
Yeah, well,
But we
yeah.
haven't had that conversation
And
with the
that-
people who have it today.
So either way, if we go with you,
Right.
I guess, and I made this suggestion in the committee, why don't we find out exactly what the citizens want before we
So what-
force feed it?
So what did the committee decide? What was the outcome of the committee?
That
It
we,
certainly wasn't that, I was there.
that we would bid manual recycling, or manual with recycling, manual without recycling, automated with recycling, automated without recycling, and see what we get. And then also one with all the different additional services, premium services of yard waste day, HHW and so forth.
And keep, let me be clear, I'm not trying to stop recycling from those subdivisions who want it. I don't want that. I just don't want to add an extra cost on to those who don't want it, the subdivisions who don't want it. And I know there's a risk of having some of this mass sophisticated type of building situation. That's not what we want. But we at least ought to be able to put out an RFP to give us to give us leeway to accommodate most of the folks.
So,
What if the price on the RFP was less than what they're paying today? And they get recycling? Who would complain about that? If you had a subdivision today and they ended up with a contract that's less than what they're paying today,
Right.
and yet have the benefit of recycling, who's gonna turn that down?
Which is probably the case of what's going to happen because of the
That's
inefficiencies
what we're
of our
working
system
towards
today.
happening, is getting a better price across the board
Right.
for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
That's the issue in Quail Valley right now.
the difference is, the difference in what you said is correct, if you look at it that way, but I think the other way to look at it is, you know, we're trying to go with the entire city,
Yeah,
so that everybody will pay one price.
yeah,
And,
that's cheaper than anybody's paying.
correct, and you're saying if that has recycling in it, that's a, that won't, that's not an argument. But the difference is that if you're paying more, then you have, today you have, I
right.
know that we have
That's a-
Riverstone and
right.
part of my neighborhood, and they all have it, and certain ones don't.
That's a different
But
story.
we're paying higher for it.
That's a different story.
bid.
That's right. But I think the whole purpose of what we're trying to do here is get a better price for everybody across the board.
Yeah.
And you do that by volume.
And
Yeah,
Agree with that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
okay.
you still have to, when you send out the RFP, so to be able to compare against best price.
In order to get a price
You've got to
to beat.
duplicate
yeah,
what they're
absolutely.
getting now, so.
Absolutely.
You know, it has to include manual with no recycling,
And manual width, correct.
yes. And, you know, basically the same service that they're receiving now to compare, because there'll be those that if you don't beat the price, they're gonna stay with,
Just simply for the price to
they're
beat.
gonna
Yeah,
stay with the
exactly.
existing provider that they have.
That's true.
Because that's what the ordinance says.
Yes.
So let's throw it out and see what happens.
Bill, so I'll look at it and let you know.
And you can see that the demand's out there. I mean, it's one where the most recent, which one was it? The e-waste. You know, people waited for hours to drop off the e-waste the other day. 650 vehicles from Missouri City came through there through the police station parking lot.
Well, I think you can have the Missouri City Green people stand up here and tell you how much pressure there is on them to do it.
And there was a question in the citizen survey,
pointed, Dan.
and Bill and I don't have it with us as far as what was the response we got from the citizen survey in regards to the question on recycling. So we'll get that
And you
information to
did that
pass
at,
on.
when you were doing that, did you not, at those drop-off points each time?
Missouri City Green did, and so they
Right,
have that data.
exactly.
Correct.
Okay. I
So-
think we're now on the same page.
So that's what's going out to, on the RFP for anyone to bid.
That, it would have, yes, it has to, in order to establish the price to beat for the existing service for non-city service customers, which is manual recycling, manual no recycling.
Now, let me make sure that when we have this, RFP comes back and it shows whatever the price is for the manual, non-recycling, you know, twice a week, you know, whatever, and it doesn't beat that, well, if it doesn't beat it, they're gonna stay on the existing contract that they have.
Correct.
Okay, but, okay.
And if it
But
is, if this one is lower than what they have today, just like people have had to do since 2010, those, Quail Valley, for instance, would have to come onto the city contract, as we've made others.
Yeah,
But
but
it's-
would that force them, you know, if the city contract has recycling, and that's an additional cost, or?
Well, no, we're gonna bid the manual,
Yeah.
non-recycling specifically for that purpose, to set that price to
The
beat.
price to beat is built on that baseline that you've got at that very bottom there.
That was my question, because my community, we have WCA, and we have bulk pickup for 2 days, as well as trash pickup, and then we have recycling. So if the city's contract comes back with a lower price without the recycling, does that cancel out us from being under WCA?
No, if you have recycling, it'd be compared to that.
Okay, okay,
To that
okay,
price that
with
they
that
have.
price, okay, okay, okay.
This is splitting hairs, Bill, but are we in tune with what the committee agreed to that you're presenting right now?
Yes, sir, I believe so.
Well, now we're trying to be in tune with the council.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
but when when it was first served up, because I got in a little late, I got to ask this question, were you in tune? Was it presented the way the committee agreed to when we had
Yes,
the last
and-
meeting?
And we did, and with all due respect, we did go a step further and say that, given national trends, we as staff would still recommend this. However, you, the committee, it's still your decision to make a recommendation to council, which was presented, and that is that we would bid them all
Okay.
and get a price on all. But the other thing too, I think correct me if I'm wrong, that I understood from the committee is that in the end, we would have a service, not 6 services like we do
Oh.
now.
For the city contract.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Did you go through the the moving forward slide?
No,
I
let
think
me
that's
do
important
real
that
quick, if I might.
they understand what the schedule is.
Right here,
Okay.
again, current contract will expire 31st of December 2015. We want to come back, based on what we discussed tonight, given what you asked for, and we understand you as a council want, and present a resolution to you so that we understand and we're all on the same page that this is what we will do when we put the RFP out to the street and what it will look like, the components that it will consist of. My understanding now is that it will be to bid all services with the opportunity for city council to look at each of those services, and of those services, choose one once they see the pricing. Correct?
That's right.
And then, we also have some decisions with regard to billing that we'll have to do, and we'll get into that a little further with you in the committee. We talked a little bit about that. We have to make some decisions by spring on it. Release the RFP in March and award the contract in June. And you may ask, between June and January, what's going to happen? These companies, based on the decision that we make, will have to go out and acquire all new equipment to put in play to service the city. And so it takes time to do that. Also, it takes time to communicate with the public what's going to happen with equipment being dropped off if we go with carts and so forth. And then the service will begin January 1 and move forward from there. We are recommending that we look at either a 5 or a 7-year contract, and a lot of that has to do with, and we discussed this a little bit the other day, about the acquisition of the equipment and the amortization of that equipment in order to make the pricing competitive. You generally see 5 and 7-year terms.
Okay.
Let me just make sure, I mean, this is just a statement from me. As far as I'm concerned, you know, we should not put any of our citizens in a position where they have to take a service at a higher cost than what they're paying now. Okay? So whatever the contract is, whoever it is, whatever they're paying, there should be no dictate that says that you're gonna have to pay more because we made it a citywide contract.
That's a decision you as the council will have to make
Okay.
back
Well,
in
and-
June.
Yeah.
Yeah, in June.
Okay.
So,
Ed's so fortunate he's got garbage service owned by his city. They got no choice.
the mayor's been doing too much research.
Well, I'm well aware of the cities in East Texas. They own their water, sewer, and their garbage service.
Yeah, this isn't one of the arguments they have to have.
Props.
What'd you do? We have like a
Nothing.
little strobe effect there?
I think maybe
And they don't have these, then they don't have these lengthy discussions.
Bill did it.
Do not.
It's in your water bill. Which